Hello everyone, MyJubJr here, and ever since I started making guide videos for World War II, I realized that I haven't really given much attention to the hardcore game modes, and recently due to the daily and weekly orders, you may have to sometimes play hardcore as a requirement for completing those challenges. So as an effort to get better in hardcore, I felt that it might be helpful to do a quick breakdown on which guns are statistically better than others. And although keep in mind that pretty much any gun is viable in hardcore since they all kill quickly, but this is simply not to say that some guns are just outclassed in terms of stats. And just before I get into things, don't expect me to go over every little stat of every gun, since I would pretty much be here all day talking about them. And instead, I'll just go over them in a more general sense and on a class by class basis. And so with that being said, I've organized the weapons of each class into 3 different tiers. In tier 1, these are guns that are the top of their class, maximizing usability by having the best stats and great adaptability. They'll pretty much be your best bet for being prepared for the most situations possible. Tier 2 weapons are weapons that have redeeming properties and could ultimately perform well in the right hands, but it has traits that just downright hurts how usable it is. Tier 3 weapons are guns that are just outclassed in pretty much every aspect. And so once again, it is possible to use these weapons, but other than using them to complete goals like camo challenges, you'll simply be better off just using another gun within the same class. Starting off with the rifle class, there really isn't a bad choice here since they're all well balanced. But with this in mind, despite the different tiers that I just outlined previously, these guns are all pretty much usable, but nevertheless, here's how the tiers play out for the rifles. I place these guns at tier 1 due to them having a very good damage profile, with all of them being capable of a one-shot kill out to about 25 meters, where this is except for the ITRA burst, where it is a 1 burst kill for all ranges, which technically takes 1 or 2 bullets depending on how far out they are. But additionally, most of these weapons have low or controllable recoil, matched with a fair enough fire rate, so that they can be applied to a wide variety of situations. Moving on to tier 2, for the BAR and M2 carbine, they're both still solid weapons, but they do boast a slower fire rate, more recoil, and a smaller mag than the guns featured in tier 1. So as you can expect, this is where their downfalls are, and ultimately leads them to feeling a little bit out of class compared to those tier 1 weapons. On the other hand, the semi-auto rifles are indeed accurate, but just due to the fact that every other rifle can kill in 1 shot, it can be hard to compete with their full auto fire. And lastly, at tier 3, while it's definitely possible to use these weapons, they just sacrifice too much in terms of firepower for pretty much nothing in return. And so I find that this is mainly due to the high damage profile that they have in core, and it's just all being put to waste and thus leaving them with awkward balancing in hardcore. And to use these weapons, you'll just simply have to be very precise to avoid wasting shots and costing you the fight. Next up, for SMGs, I find that you must rely on flanking around the map for a chance to get close to your enemies, as this is since you can easily get picked off by pretty much anything else, because SMGs you'll find will have a very small one-hit kill range compared to the other classes. This playstyle especially works well with the suppressor attachment and mountain division paired up with it, where it makes it so easy to weave around the map with relative ease, and makes you value enemy recon planes being called up, simply because all the enemies are really reliant on it and won't expect you to pop out of nowhere. Starting off at tier 1 again, the SMGs here are easy to apply with their great handling and range profile, with all these SMGs having a decent one-hit kill range of around 10 to 15 meters depending on the gun. But the most important part is that they can easily get their shots on target, even when it comes down to their 2-shot kill ranges. Plus, they also work well with the suppressor too, which is always a good thing to have. Now for tier 2, while the grease gun can almost be a tier 1 weapon in my opinion, I couldn't quite give it to it just because of the very low rate of fire and somewhat bouncy recoil. However, it is not to be mistaken that it is still very usable and powerful in the right hands. I recommend a suppressor for this one especially, due to it having a one-hit kill out to 20 meters. And as for the MP40, I feel it's almost the same deal here, but I find the heavy recoil can really throw the shots off at further ranges, which will definitely cost a couple gunfights or so. At tier 3, all these SMGs suffer from a hard to predict recoil that is also fairly strong on top of that. And in a game mode where gunfights happen extremely fast and accuracy is pretty much everything, fighting recoil is something you definitely don't want to be doing. However, if you wish to use these SMGs, they perform well at close range where you can reliably hipfire them. Although a special note for the Sterling is that it's very similar to the grease gun, and statistically the Sterling only has a bit more range and recoil than the grease gun. So as a matter of fact, if the recoil doesn't bother you, then it can easily be a tier 2 SMG in that case. And before I continue on to the LMGs and other classes, it might be best to split this topic into 2 separate videos, as I think it'll be better this way since this is kind of an information overload. And if I don't split it, then this will be like a 15-minute long video. And I understand that not everybody is willing to sit through that kind of content. So I'm sorry to end it like this, but I'll be sure to keep working hard on getting the other piece done quickly. And if you enjoyed, I always appreciate sharing my videos and leaving comments down below. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and until the next video.